The dinner rush at the Golden Leaf was in full swing. The clinking of expensive crystal and the low hum of important conversations filled the air as May wiped a drop of sweat from her brow. She balanced 3 plates of seared scallops along her arm with the skill that came from 4 years of practice. "Excuse me," she said with a practiced smile as she slipped between chairs to reach table 9. "The scallops with truffle sauce," she announced, setting the plates down with perfect care. The man in the tailored suit barely looked up from his phone. The woman beside him gave a quick nod without pausing her story about someone's Hampton beach house. The third guest at least muttered a quiet, "Thank you," before returning to the conversation. To them, May was just another part of the restaurant's expensive decor, there to serve and then disappear. None of them could possibly know that just 12 hours earlier, those same hands that now served their dinner had been dancing across piano keys, bringing Chopin to life in her tiny apartment. May checked her watch. 8:47 p.m. 4 more tables to serve, then clean up, and she might make it home by midnight. Just enough time to practice for an hour before her neighbors would start complaining about the noise. "Order up for table 12, called Luis from the kitchen. May hurried back, her comfortable black shoes squeaking slightly on the polished floor. She had bought them secondhand, choosing comfort over style. Style wouldn't matter when your feet were throbbing after a 10-hour shift. "How's table 9? Asked Zoe, another server who was arranging fresh roses in a vase. "Same as always." The one on the left might actually believe servers are robots. May grabbed napkins from the station. "Big tipper, though," Zoe winked. "I'll believe it when I see it." The kitchen door swung open and Chef Roland appeared, his face flushed from the heat of the stoves. "Table 16 is asking for you specifically, May. The gentleman says the sauce isn't right." May bit her lip. Table 16 was Mr. Powell, a regular who found something wrong with his food at least twice during every visit. She nodded and headed over. "Mr. Powell, I hear there's an issue with your sauce." She kept her voice light, respectful. The older man looked up, his silver eyebrows drawn together in disapproval. "This is not how it was prepared last time. Tell Roland to remake it. Less lemon, more butter." "Of course, sir. Right away." May took the plate, knowing very well that the sauce was exactly the same as it always was. This was just Mr. Powell's way of asserting control. As she returned to the kitchen, May's mind drifted to her mother's voice on the phone that morning. "The hospital bill came again," she had said, her voice thin with worry. "They're saying if we don't make a payment by next week, I'll send money tomorrow," May had promised. "I picked up extra shifts this week." What she didn't tell her mother was that she'd had to cancel her audition for the community orchestra to take those shifts, or that she'd been saving those tips for sheet music and piano maintenance. Some dreams would just have to wait. Chef Roland took the plate from her hands with an understanding nod. He'd been through this routine with Mr. Powell many times. "I'll add a touch more butter and send him a complimentary glass of wine," he said, already preparing a fresh plate. "You holding up okay? You look tired." "I'm fine," May answered automatically. Roland's eyes softened. "You know, my cousin works at that music shop on 7th. He mentioned you come in sometimes to play their grand piano." May froze. She'd been careful to keep her musical life separate from work. "I just dabble a bit," she said, taking the fresh plate. "Nothing serious. Doesn't sound like dabbling from what he described." Roland handed her a glass of wine for Mr. Powell. "Said you played like you should be on a stage somewhere, not serving duck confit to people who don't look up from their phones." Heat crept up May's neck. "Your cousin exaggerates." "My cousin doesn't know Beethoven from Beyoncé, but he knows talent when he hears it." Roland turned back to his grill. "Table 7's entrees are almost up." May delivered Mr. Powell's revised dish and worked through the rest of her tables in a rhythm as familiar as a metronome. Smile, serve, clear, repeat. The restaurant slowly emptied as the night wore on. Wealthy patrons leaving in waves of expensive perfume and casual displays of generosity that rarely matched their bank accounts. By 11:30, the Golden Leaf was nearly empty. May finished wiping down her last table when she heard it, the soft, almost tentative notes of piano music coming from the lounge area. The restaurant kept a baby grand piano near the bar, mostly for show or the occasional weekend performer. She followed the sound, curious who would be playing at this hour. Turning the corner, she saw Luis, the dishwasher, sitting at the piano bench. His fingers moved uncertainly over the keys, picking out a simple melody. "I didn't know you played," May said, causing Luis to jump. "I don't, not really." He pulled, his hands away as if the keys might burn him. "My daughter is starting lessons and I was just trying to learn a little so I could help her practice." He stood up, embarrassment written across his face. "Sorry, I should get back to the dishes." "No, it's okay," May said quickly. "That's really sweet of you." "What's she learning?" Luis smiled, his face lighting up at the mention of his daughter. "Just basics. Mary had a little lamb and stuff. Her teacher says she has a good ear." May glanced at the piano, then at her watch. She should head home. The last bus would come soon, and she had an early shift tomorrow. But something in Luis's expression made her set down her bag. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the piano. Luis nodded, stepping aside. May sat down, feeling the cool ivory beneath her fingertips. This piano was far nicer than the worn upright she had at home, the one her parents had scraped together money to buy when she was just 7 years old and showing promise. She began to play the simple children's tune Luis had been working on, then gradually transformed it, adding harmonies and variations until the simple melody bloomed into something rich and complex, before returning to the original theme. When she finished and looked up, Luis was staring at her, mouth slightly open. Behind him stood Zoe, Roland, and 2 busboys who had paused their work to listen. That was... Luis seemed to struggle for words. "Where did you learn to play like that?" May's hands fell to her lap. "I studied at the music conservatory for 2 years, she said quietly, "before my mom got sick." A silence fell over the small group. They all understood what wasn't being said. Dreams set aside for necessity, talent shelved to pay bills. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" asked Zoe. May shrugged. "It didn't seem relevant to carrying plates." Chef Roland leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You should be playing professionally." "Maybe someday," May said, the words tasting like a lie. She stood up and reached for her coat. "I need to catch my bus." "Play something else first," Luis urged. "Please. I'll give you a ride home after." May hesitated, looking at their expectant faces. These people who had worked alongside her for years without knowing this essential part of who she was. For so long she'd kept her 2 worlds separate, the practical world of serving tables and sending money home, and the secret world where music lived in her heart, despite everything. She sat back down. "Just one more," she agreed, and began to play. This time she chose Debussy's Clair de Lune, letting the gentle notes flow through the empty restaurant. She closed her eyes, forgetting for a moment about bus schedules and morning shifts and unpaid bills. For these few minutes, she was just a musician again, letting the music speak the things she couldn't say aloud, about dreams deferred but not abandoned, about beauty that persists even when life gets hard. When the final notes faded, she opened her eyes to find her small audience had grown. The restaurant manager, Mr. Chen, stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "I didn't know we had entertainment scheduled tonight," he said, his voice neutral. May stood quickly. "I'm sorry. I was just... No need to apologize." Mr. Chen walked closer, studying her with new interest. "How long have you been playing?" "Since I was 5, May admitted. "But it's just a hobby now." Mr. Chen raised an eyebrow. "That's not just a hobby. That's a gift." He glanced at the piano, then back at May. "You know, we've been thinking about adding live music on weeknights. Our regular pianist only comes in for weekend brunches." May's heart skipped. "Are you offering?" "We'd have to work out the details," Mr. Chen said carefully. "But yes, I think we could arrange something. You could serve your regular tables and play a set or 2. We'd adjust your pay accordingly, of course." For the first time in years, May felt a flicker of hope. a small bridge forming between her two separate lives. "I'd like that," she said, simply the words inadequate for the feeling swelling in her chest. As Louise drove her home that night, May looked out at the city lights blurring past the window. Tomorrow, she would still wake up early. She would still serve tables and smile at people who didn't see her. She would still worry about her mother's medical bills and the rent coming due. But tomorrow, she would also bring her sheet music to work. And for a few precious moments, the people who had never truly seen her before would finally get a glimpse of who she really was. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. 2 weeks had passed since Mr. Chen had discovered May playing the piano after hours. True to his word, he had arranged for her to play short sets on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, the restaurant's quieter nights. The extra money wasn't much, but it felt different from her serving wages. This money came from doing something she loved. Tonight was different, though. The Golden Leaf was buzzing with activity as staff rushed to prepare for the annual Arts Foundation Charity Gala. The event brought together the city's wealthiest art patrons, museum directors, and cultural influencers for a night of fine dining and fundraising. "Careful with those centerpieces," Mr. Chen called out as May balanced a tray of water glasses. "They cost more than your monthly rent." May nodded, eyeing the elaborate flower arrangements with their delicate orchids and twinkling fairy lights. The whole restaurant had been transformed. White tablecloths replaced with deep burgundy ones, crystal chandeliers polished to perfection, and a small stage set up near the grand piano. "Nervous about tonight?" Zoe asked, appearing beside May, with a stack of hand-printed menus. "Why would I be nervous? I'm just serving, same as always." May arranged the water glasses in perfect alignment. "Yeah, but these aren't our regular customers. These are the my great-grandfather's name is on, a building downtown type of people." May shrugged. "They still put their pants on one leg at a time." "That's assuming they put on their own pants at all," Zoe laughed. The kitchen doors swung open and Chef Roland emerged, his face serious. "Listen up, everyone. Tonight's menu is prix-fixe, 7 courses. Each plate needs to look exactly like the photos I showed you this morning. These people don't just eat food. They photograph it, critique it, and judge our entire establishment by it." The staff gathered around as Roland continued his pep talk. May half listened, her eyes drifting, to the grand piano in the corner. Tonight a professional pianist would be playing, Alejandro Reyes, a rising star in the classical music world. She had listened to his recordings and had been looking forward to hearing him play in person. "May!" Mr. Chen's voice snapped her back to attention. "You'll be handling tables 7 through 10. These are key donors to the foundation, so they get special attention, understood?" "Yes, sir," she replied, mentally preparing herself for a night of invisible service and forced smiles. By 6 o'clock, the first guests began to arrive. Women in designer gowns and men in tuxedos filed in, air-kissing acquaintances and making small talk about summer homes and private art collections. May moved efficiently between her tables, filling water glasses and explaining the evening's special menu. "The first course is a chilled cucumber soup with mint oil and crab," she explained to the elderly couple at table 7. "Chef Roland sources the crab from fishermen in Maine." The woman nodded appreciatively while her husband checked his watch. "When is the music supposed to start?" he asked. "Mr. Reyes will begin playing during the second course, sir." At 7:30 all seats were filled, and the first course was being served throughout the dining room. Mr. Chen stood near the entrance, looking increasingly anxious as he checked his phone. May approached him after delivering wine to table 9. "Is everything okay?" He shook his head slightly. "Alejandro Reyes is stuck in traffic. There was an accident on the bridge. He says he might not make it until dessert." "Can we delay the courses?" "The soufflés are already timed. We can't push back the whole menu." Mr. Chen ran a hand through his thinning hair. "The director of the foundation is already asking when the music will start. These people expect entertainment with their meal." May bit her lip, an idea forming, that she instantly tried to dismiss. It was crazy, it was presumptuous, it was possibly their only option. "I could play," she said quietly. "Just until Mr. Reyes arrives." Mr. Chen looked at her with surprise, then consideration. The pieces you've been playing on weeknights are lovely, May, but this crowd expects something. I studied at the conservatory for 2 years, she interrupted. I know the classical repertoire. I can play Chopin, Debussy, Bach. She took a deep breath. I can do this. Mr. Chen hesitated, glancing around at the crowded restaurant. The low murmur of conversation was punctuated by the occasional clink of glasses and silverware. Several guests were already looking expectantly toward the piano. Okay, he finally said. But change first. What? He gestured to her server's uniform. There's a dress in the lost and found. Navy blue, left behind after a wedding reception last month. No one claimed it. It should fit you. 15 minutes later, May stood beside the piano, her heart hammering in her chest. The navy dress was slightly too big in the shoulders but fell elegantly to her knees. Zoe had helped pin her hair up quickly and had even managed to find a pair of simple earrings from her own purse. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chen announced, tapping a spoon against his glass. While we await the arrival of Alejandro Reyes, who has been unfortunately delayed, we are pleased to present one of our own talented staff members, Mei Lin. A polite smattering of applause followed as May sat down at the piano bench. She could feel curious eyes on her as she adjusted the seat. Some guests looked interested, others skeptical, and many simply continued their conversations, clearly expecting background music at best. May placed her fingers on the keys and took a deep breath. She could play it safe with simple, pleasant pieces that would fade into the background of dinner conversation. Or she could play what she really wanted to play, what she used to play when she believed she might one day perform on real stages. She chose Chopin's Ballad No. 1 in G minor. The opening notes rang out, gentle and questioning at first. She felt, rather than saw, the first few heads turn toward her. As the piece built, her fingers danced across the keys with increasing intensity and passion. The technical challenges that had once required hours of practice now flowed naturally, muscle memory taking over as she lost herself in the music. By the time she reached the thunderous middle section, the dining room had grown noticeably quieter. Waitstaff paused in their duties and dinner conversations trailed off. Even Chef Roland stood in the kitchen doorway, a plate forgotten in his hand. May didn't notice any of this. She was somewhere else entirely, back in the practice rooms of the conservatory, back before hospital bills and practical concerns had reshaped her life. For these precious minutes, she was simply a musician again, speaking through Chopin's notes. As the final chords resolved, May opened her eyes, suddenly aware of the complete silence that had fallen over the restaurant. For a terrifying moment, she thought she had made a terrible mistake. Then the applause began. Not polite, obligatory applause, but genuine, enthusiastic appreciation that spread across the room. She stood and gave a small bow, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment and pride. "Another," called someone from the back of the room. "Play the Moonlight Sonata," suggested another voice. May looked questioningly at Mr. Chen, who nodded encouragingly. She sat back down and began Beethoven's famous piece, its haunting melody filling the room. This time she was aware of her audience, aware of the servers quietly moving between tables, trying not to disturb the unexpected performance. She played for nearly 40 minutes, moving from classical pieces to more modern compositions. With each piece she grew more confident, remembering what it felt like to play for an audience who was truly listening. During a brief pause between pieces, she noticed a commotion near the entrance. A man had arrived, tall, with a leather portfolio case that clearly held sheet music. Alejandro Reyes had finally made it through traffic. May stood quickly, ready to relinquish the piano. She had done her job, filled the gap until the real performer arrived. Now she could go back to being invisible, but as she tried to step away from the piano, a woman at table 8 reached out and touched her arm. "Please, one more piece before you go," she said. The woman wore an elegant black dress and a pearl necklace that probably cost more than May's yearly salary. On her lapel was a small gold pin identifying her as the Arts Foundation director. "Mr. Reyes has arrived," May explained softly. "And he can wait a few more minutes," the woman replied with a warm smile. "I'd like to hear you play something of your own, Something that tells us who you are. May froze. I haven't written anything in years. Then play something. That means something to you. May hesitated, then nodded. She sat back down and closed her eyes for a moment, deciding. Then her fingers found the keys again, and she began to play Liszt's Liebestraum No. 3, a piece about love and dreams and loss. She had played this piece the day before she left the conservatory, knowing it would be her last recital. She had played it for her mother in the hospital, watching tears track down her mother's tired face. She played it now for herself, for the dreams she had set aside but never fully abandoned. When she finished, she remained still for a moment, head bowed. Then she stood and walked quickly toward the kitchen, needing to escape the intensity of emotions the music had stirred up. Behind her, she heard Mr. Chen introducing Alejandro Reyes to enthusiastic applause. The night would continue as planned. Her moment in the spotlight was over, but as she pushed through the kitchen doors, she nearly collided with the Arts Foundation director. May, the woman said, surprising her by using her name. That was extraordinary. Thank you, May replied, automatically. No, I mean truly extraordinary. I'd like to speak with you after dinner service. We have a scholarship program for exceptional musicians who've had to interrupt their studies. She handed May a business card. Promise me you'll call tomorrow, even if you're unsure. Before May could respond, Chef Roland called out, Second, course for table 12. May nodded to the director and turned back to her duties, tucking the card carefully into her pocket. Her hands were trembling slightly as she picked up the tray of plates. For the rest of the evening, she moved between tables in her borrowed dress, serving food to people who now looked at her differently, who actually saw her for the first time. She felt as though she was walking in a dream, between two worlds that had suddenly, unexpectedly begun to merge. Morning light streamed through the thin curtains of May's apartment as she sat at her kitchen table, turning the business card over and over in her fingers. Patricia Winters, Director, City Arts Foundation. The embossed gold letters caught the sunlight each time May rotated the card. She had barely slept after the charity gala. The memory of sitting at that grand piano, playing for a room full of people who actually listened, really listened, kept replaying in her mind. The shocked faces, the applause, the way the room had fallen silent during her performance of Liszt. Her phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. Have you called the fancy art lady yet? May smiled despite her nervousness. Zoe had been more excited about the scholarship possibility than May herself seemed capable of being. Hope was a luxury May had stopped allowing herself years ago. She picked up her phone and typed back, Not yet. About to. Before she could change her mind, May dialed the number on the card. To her surprise, Patricia Winters answered directly. Ms. Winters speaking. Hello, this is May Lin. From last night? I played the piano at the Golden Leaf. May, I'm so glad you called. The warmth in Patricia's voice was genuine. I was hoping we could meet in person to discuss some opportunities. Are you free this afternoon? 3 hours later, May found herself sitting in a sleek office on the 23rd floor of a downtown high-rise. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city. Patricia Winters sat across from her at a glass desk, a tablet in hand. Your former professor at the conservatory, Dr. Abernathy, speaks very highly of you, Patricia said, looking up from her screen. I reached out to him this morning. May blinked in surprise. You contacted Dr. Abernathy? Patricia nodded. He still remembers your final recital piece before you left. He called it heartbreaking in its perfection. A lump formed in May's throat. She hadn't spoken to Dr. Abernathy since the day she'd withdrawn from the conservatory. She'd been too ashamed to face him, the professor who had once told her she could have a career on the international stage. The foundation has a special scholarship fund, Patricia continued, for exceptional talents facing financial hardship. It covers tuition, basic living expenses, and even provides a small stipend for family support. May's heart began to race. Family support? Yes. We understand that many artists have obligations beyond themselves. Your mother's medical expenses, for instance. May's eyes widened. How did you... Dr. Abernathy explained your situation. Patricia's expression softened. The arts world lost too many promising careers to practical concerns. That's why this program exists. For a moment, May couldn't speak. The possibility unfolding before her seemed too perfect, too much like the daydreams she'd stopped allowing herself to have. There's something else, Patricia said, pulling a folder from her desk drawer. Last night wasn't just a fortunate accident. Someone at the gala recorded your performance and shared it online. She turned her tablet toward May. On the screen was a video titled, Waitress Stuns Charity Gala with Incredible Piano Performance. The view count already showed over 50,000. People are calling you the server virtuoso, Patricia said with a smile. The video's been shared by several major classical music accounts. There's already talk about... A knock at the door interrupted her. Patricia looked up. Ah, right on time. I hope you don't mind, but I invited someone else to join our conversation. The door opened and a tall man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes entered. May recognized him immediately. Vincent Taylor, founder of New Horizons Records, one of the most respected classical music labels in the country. Ms. Lin, he said, extending his hand. I was at table 10 last night. Your Chopin brought tears to my eyes. May stood on shaky legs to shake his hand. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Vincent, please. He took a seat beside her. I've been in this business for 30 years, and I can count on one hand the number of times I've been truly surprised by a performance. Last night was one of those rare moments. May felt like she was floating outside her body, watching this scene unfold from a distance. Just 2 days ago, she'd been worried about making rent and helping with her mother's latest hospital bill. Now she was sitting in a luxury office with two people who spoke about her talent as if it were a precious gem they'd discovered. New Horizons would be interested in discussing a recording contract, Vincent said, getting straight to the point. Nothing extravagant for a debut, but a proper introduction to the classical world. May's mouth went dry. A recording contract? The video from last night already proves there's an audience for your story and your talent, he explained. The classical music world loves nothing more than an authentic voice with a compelling journey. Patricia leaned forward. The scholarship and the recording opportunity aren't mutually exclusive, May. In fact, they could complement each other perfectly. May looked between them, suddenly overwhelmed. This is all happening so fast. Yesterday I was just a waitress who played piano on the side. No, Vincent said firmly. Yesterday you were a brilliant pianist who was serving tables to make ends meet. There's a world of difference. For the first time, May allowed herself to really consider the possibility that her life could change, that the dream she had carefully packed away might be taken out and dusted off again. My mother, she began hesitantly. Her treatments, the foundation's family stipend would help, Patricia assured her, and any advance from New Horizons could make a significant difference as well. Vincent nodded. We're not talking about charity, May. We're talking about investing in extraordinary talent. Talent that, frankly, shouldn't be hidden away in a restaurant after hours. A memory flashed in May's mind, her mother sitting beside her at their old upright piano, guiding her 5-year-old fingers over the keys. Music is a gift, her mother had told her. When you share it, it grows. I need some time to think, May said finally. This is more than I ever expected. Of course, Patricia handed her another folder. All the scholarship details are in here. The application deadline would normally have passed, but we're making an exception. And this, Vincent added, passing her his business card, has my direct number. Call me when you're ready to talk further. As they wrapped up the meeting, May's phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Chen. Need you to come in early tonight. Big news to discuss. 40 minutes later, May walked through the staff entrance of the Golden Leaf. The restaurant was quiet in the late afternoon, with only a few servers setting up for dinner service. There she is, Luis called out when he saw her. Our famous pianist. May blushed as several staff members looked up and applauded. News traveled fast. Mr. Chen wants to see you in his office, Zoe said, giving her a quick hug. Don't keep us in suspense after. We want to hear everything about your meeting. With the art lady. Mr. Chen was on the phone when May knocked on his office door. He waved her in, wrapping up his call quickly. May, he said, standing to greet her. I've had 17 calls today about you. 17. Everyone wants to know about the amazing pianist who works at the Golden Leaf. May couldn't help but smile at his excitement. I'm sorry if it's causing problems. Problems? Mr. Chen laughed. The opposite. We're fully booked for the next 3 weeks. People are requesting your tables. Specifically, he gestured for her to sit. I want to offer you a new position. Official house pianist 3 nights a week. You'd play a proper set each evening with full billing on our website and promotions. We'd pay you triple your current hourly rate for performance time. May was stunned. It was a generous offer, one that would have seemed like a dream just days ago. You don't have to answer right away, Mr. Chen continued. But I wanted you to know the option is here. The Golden Leaf would be proud to be part of your story. Her story? It was strange to think she suddenly had a story people were interested in. Thank you, she said sincerely. It means a lot that you'd offer this. As she left Mr. Chen's office, May felt a strange mix of emotions. Gratitude for these unexpected opportunities, anxiety about making the right choice, and underneath it all, a growing sense that the careful walls she'd built between her 2 lives, between the practical server and the passionate pianist, were crumbling for good. She found herself walking to the grand piano in the empty dining room. Running her fingers lightly over the keys, she thought about all that had happened in the last 24 hours. Her phone buzzed again. A text from her mother. Just saw a video of you playing piano at work. When were you going to tell me? You sound just like you did at the conservatory. Call me. May smiled, tears pricking at her eyes. Her mother sounded more animated than she had in months. She sat down at the piano bench and began to play softly. Not Chopin or Liszt this time, but a simple melody she had composed years ago, when she still believed anything was possible. As the notes filled the empty restaurant, May realized something important, regardless of which path she chose, the scholarship, the recording contract, or Mr. Chen's offer. Music would no longer be the secret part of her life. It would no longer be the dream she visited only after midnight, when her real life was on pause. For the first time in years, her 2 worlds were merging into one. The revelation wasn't just for the wealthy patrons who had discovered her talent. It was for May herself, rediscovering the person she had always been beneath the server's uniform. As the final notes of her composition faded, she heard soft applause from the doorway. The dinner staff had gathered to listen, their faces filled with a new kind of respect and understanding. Play something else? Zoe asked. May nodded and turned back to the keys. This time she played with confidence, no longer hiding who she was or what she could do. The audience of servers and kitchen staff might not have been wealthy art patrons or record executives, but as May played for them, really played, giving everything she had, she realized something that changed everything. Music wasn't about who was listening. It was about having the courage to be heard. The morning sun streamed through the blinds as May stared at her phone in disbelief. The video of her performance had just passed 1 million views. The comment section overflowed with messages from around the world. Who is this amazing woman? From serving food to serving pure magic. This is why I never judge anyone by their job. May scrolled through dozens more, unable to process that they were talking about her. Just 3 weeks ago she had been invisible. Just another server balancing plates and smiling through rude comments. Now her inbox was flooded with interview requests from music blogs, local news stations, and even a national morning show. The phone rang in her hand, making her jump. It was Zoe. Have you seen the news? Zoe's voice practically vibrated with excitement. Which part of it? May asked, setting her coffee mug down. It's all happening so fast. Channel 5, they're talking. About you right now. May scrambled for the remote and turned on her small television. Sure enough, there was her face on screen. A still image from the video, her eyes closed as her fingers touched the piano keys. The caption read, Server Virtuoso, The Waitress taking the classical world by storm. The video has gone viral. Internationally, the news anchor was saying, with classical music experts praising her technical skill and emotional depth. Lynn had been a student at the prestigious City Conservatory before family circumstances forced her to withdraw. May quickly turned it off, her heart racing. It was too strange seeing strangers discuss her life, reducing years of struggle and sacrifice to a neat human interest story. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. The nurses are all asking for your autograph. When are you coming to visit? She smiled. Her mother had always been her biggest supporter, even when piano lessons meant extra shifts at the factory. Now the scholarship from the Arts Foundation meant her mother could finally get the specialized treatment they'd been unable to afford. The buzzer for her apartment door rang. May frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone. Delivery for May Lynn, a voice called through the intercom. Downstairs, she found a courier with a large envelope from New Horizons Records. Inside was a formal contract offer, along with a handwritten note from Vincent Taylor. May, the world is waiting to hear your music. This is just the beginning. Vincent. The contract outlined a 2-album deal with an advance that made May's hands shake. It was more money than she had earned in the past 3 years combined. Back in her apartment, she spread the paperwork across her kitchen table alongside the scholarship documents from the Arts Foundation. Both represented dreams she had long ago filed away under impossible. Now they were competing realities, each pulling her in different directions. Her phone rang again. The Golden Leaf. May, it's absolute madness here, Mr. Chen said when she answered. We have reservation requests from people flying in from Chicago, LA, even London, just to hear you play. I know I offered you 3 nights a week, but would you consider— Mr. Chen, she interrupted gently. I need a few days to figure things out. This is all happening so quickly. There was a pause on the line. Of course, he said finally. Take the time you need. Just know that whatever you decide, we're proud of you. All of us. His words brought unexpected tears to her eyes. The restaurant staff had become like family over the years, the kind of family that bickered and complained but showed up when it mattered. That afternoon, May visited her mother at the rehabilitation center. The new treatment was already showing, promising results. Her mother's eyes were brighter, her movements less pained. Look at all these flowers, May exclaimed, noticing the room filled with bouquets. Her mother smiled. From your fans at the restaurant, and these— she pointed to an elegant arrangement of orchids— are from that record producer you met. May sat on the edge of the bed, taking her mother's hand. What should I do, Mom? The scholarship would mean going back to school, finishing what I started. But the recording contract is an opportunity that might never come again. Her mother squeezed her hand. When you were 5 years old, I asked what you wanted to be when you grew up. Do you remember what you said? May shook her head. You said, I want to play piano for people who are sad. Not to be famous, not to make money, just to play for people who needed music. Her mother's eyes grew misty. Whatever path gets you closest to that little girl's dream, that's the right one. Her way home, May's phone rang with an unknown number. She almost ignored it but answered at the last moment. Is this May Lynn? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Yes, who's calling? My name is Diane Powell. I run a small music therapy program at Children's Hospital. I saw your video, and I'm wondering if you'd consider visiting our patients. Many of them are long-term, and they would be thrilled to hear you play. May thought of her mother's words, playing for people who needed music. I'd love to, she said without hesitation. When? 2 days later, May found herself pushing a small electronic keyboard down the colorful hallways of Children's Hospital. The nurses led her to a bright room where a dozen children sat in a semicircle, some in wheelchairs, others with IV poles. Beside them, their faces lit up when Diane introduced her. You're the piano lady from the internet, one little boy exclaimed. May laughed. I guess I am. She played for them for over an hour, classical pieces, popular songs they requested, even improvising stories through music. The children's delight was unlike any audience response she'd ever experienced. Pure, unfiltered joy. As she was packing up, a quiet voice spoke beside her. "Can you teach me to play?" A girl of about 10 stood there, thin arms crossed over her. Hospital gown, a colorful scarf wrapped around her head. "I'm Lily," the girl continued. "I have to stay here for a long time, and it gets boring. I always wanted to learn piano." Something shifted inside May as she looked at Lily's determined face. "I'd be happy to teach you," she said. "I could come back next week with some beginner books." Lily's smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. On her way out, Diane walked with her to the elevator. "The kids loved you," she said. "We have a small budget for a music therapy program, but it's not much." "I don't need payment," May said, surprising herself. This was the most meaningful performance I've given in years. That night, May sat at her own piano, playing softly as she thought about the past few weeks. The viral fame, the contract offers, the scholarship opportunity. And now, the children's faces lighting up as she played. Her phone buzzed with a text from Vincent Taylor. "Decision yet? Need to move forward with contract." The pressure to choose a path weighed heavily. Each option represented a different life, a different version of herself. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Luis from the restaurant. "Sorry to bother you at home," he said, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Chen gave me your address." "Is everything okay?" Luis shifted from foot to foot. "My daughter, the one taking piano lessons, she saw your video. She hasn't stopped talking about you. Says she wants to be just like you when she grows up." He held out a child's drawing of a stick figure at a piano. "She made this for you." May took the drawing, touched by the wobbly lines and bright colors. "She has her recital next week," Luis continued. "She's nervous. I told her even famous pianists get nervous, but..." He trailed off, then gathered his courage. "Would you come? Just to watch? It would mean the world to her." Looking at the drawing, in her hands, May felt something click into place, a clarity she hadn't had before. "I'll be there," she promised. After Luis left, May returned to her piano. She played a piece she hadn't touched in years, a simple melody she'd composed as a student, before life had forced her to choose between her passion and practicality, as awa. The notes filled her apartment. She reached for her phone and dialed Patricia Winters at the Arts Foundation. "I've made my decision," May said when Patricia answered. "I want to accept the scholarship, but with a modification. Instead of returning as just a performance major, I'd like to add music therapy to my studies." There was surprise in Patricia's voice. "That's an unusual combination." "I know. But I've realized something important. Playing at the charity gala opened doors I never thought possible, but playing for those kids today, that opened my heart." After hanging up, she called Vincent Taylor next. "I'm not saying no to the recording contract," she explained. "But I need to defer for a year while I return to school. The music I want to create now is different from what I would have recorded a month ago." To her surprise, Vincent wasn't upset. "The best artists evolve," he said. "Take the time you need. Your story just gets more interesting." Finally, she called Mr. Chen. "I can still play at the Golden Leaf one night a week," she told him. "Not as a novelty or an attraction, but because it's where my journey took an unexpected turn. It's part of my story now." As she hung up, May felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. The viral video had cracked open a door, but she was the one choosing which path to walk through it. Her phone buzzed with yet another interview request, this one from a major magazine wanting to do a feature on the Waitress pianist. May smiled as she declined. The world wanted to define her by a single moment, the night she stepped out from behind her server's uniform and revealed her talent. But she was more than that viral video, more than a heartwarming story for people to share online. She was a musician finding her way back to the reason she fell in love with piano in the first place, the simple, powerful ability to touch people's hearts through music. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, returning to school, balancing commitments, navigating her unexpected fame. But tonight, she played for herself, rediscovering the joy that had started her on this path so many years ago. The aftermath of her viral moment wasn't just about opportunities and contracts. It was about remembering who she had always been beneath, the layers of compromise and necessity, and finding a way forward that honored both her past and her future. 1 year later, May stood in the wings of the city's most prestigious concert hall, her heart pounding in her chest. Through a gap in the heavy curtains, she could see the packed auditorium. Every seat was filled, from the orchestra section where tickets cost more than a month's rent at her old apartment, to the uppermost balcony where music students had lined up since dawn to buy the affordable seats she had insisted on. 5 minutes, Ms. Lin, the stage manager whispered, clipboard in hand. May nodded, smoothing down the simple blue gown she had chosen for tonight. Not black, as was traditional for classical pianists, but the color of possibility. The same shade as the dress she had borrowed on the night that changed everything. Her phone buzzed with text messages. From Zoe. The whole restaurant staff is here. Chef Roland is actually wearing a tie. From Luis. My daughter made you a good luck card. We're saving it for after the show. From her mother. So proud of you. Your father would have been too. That last one brought tears to her eyes. Her mother was in the front row tonight, healthy enough to attend after completing her treatment program. It had been a long year for both of them. May juggling her return to the conservatory, her music therapy training, her weekly performances at the Golden Leaf, and regular visits to the children's hospital. Ms. Lin? A soft voice broke through, her thoughts. Lily stood there, no longer in a hospital gown but wearing a pretty dress, her hair now grown into short curls after her successful treatment. I wanted to wish you good luck. May knelt down to hug the girl who had become her most dedicated piano student. Thank you for coming. Are you nervous about your part? Lily shook her head, eyes bright with excitement. Not anymore. You taught me that making mistakes is okay as long as you keep playing. This was the lesson May herself had needed to learn, that life's wrong notes didn't have to end the music. The lights in the hall dimmed, and the audience's chatter faded to expectant silence. This wasn't just May's debut recital since returning to the conservatory. It was also a fundraiser for the new music therapy wing at Children's Hospital, where she now worked 3 days a week. It's time, the stage manager whispered. May took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The applause that greeted her was thunderous, far beyond the polite welcome usually given to classical performers. These people weren't just here for the music. They were here for the story. Her story. She spotted familiar faces as she took her bow. Mr. Chen and the restaurant staff occupied an entire row, some of them in a concert hall for the first time. Patricia Winters from the Arts Foundation sat near the front, alongside Vincent Taylor from New Horizons Records. The children from the hospital's music therapy program filled a special section to the right, their faces glowing with pride to see their teacher on the big stage. As the applause finally quieted, May settled at the gleaming grand piano. This instrument was a far cry from the upright she had practiced on in her tiny apartment, or even the piano at the Golden Leaf. Its sound would fill every corner of this magnificent space. She began with Chopin, the same piece she had played at the charity gala a year ago. Her fingers found the familiar notes, but she played them differently now. Not with the desperate passion of someone stealing a moment in the spotlight, but with the confidence of an artist who had found her path. For the first half of the program, May played the classical repertoire she had studied at the conservatory: Bach, Beethoven, Debussy. Each piece told part of her journey, from the structured precision of her early training to the emotional depth she had discovered through life's challenges. After intermission, she returned to the stage with Lily and 3 other children from the hospital's music therapy program. They joined her at the piano for a piece they had composed together during their sessions, a simple, joyful melody that brought smiles to the audience's faces. Music has the power to heal, May told the audience as the children returned to their seats. It certainly healed me, in ways I'm still discovering. For the final piece of the evening, May had planned to play a Rachmaninoff concerto, but as she sat at the piano, looking out at the faces of people who had been part of her remarkable journey, she made a different choice. "I'd like to close with something new," she said into the microphone. "A piece I've been composing throughout this past year. It's called From Serving to Shining, and it tells the story of finding your way back to yourself." The piece began softly, with a melancholy refrain that spoke of dreams deferred and daily struggles. Gradually, it built in complexity and emotional range, echoing her years of serving tables while her true passion waited in the shadows. The middle section incorporated faint echoes of kitchen sounds and dinner conversation, transformed into an unexpectedly beautiful rhythmic pattern. Then came the turning point, the moment of revelation when her two worlds had collided. The music soared, no longer constrained by fear or practicality. It wasn't just about her talent being discovered by others. It was about her rediscovering her own voice and purpose. As she played the final movement, May wove in musical quotes from the children's songs she now taught at the hospital, alongside classical motifs that honored her formal training. The piece ended not with a dramatic flourish, but with a simple, hopeful phrase that hung in the air like a question waiting to be answered. For a moment after the final note faded, the concert hall was completely silent. Then the audience rose, to their feet in a standing ovation that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. May stood to take her bow, tears streaming down her face. This wasn't just applause for a performance, it was recognition of a journey, one that had required courage, resilience, and the willingness to begin again. As she took her final bow and left the stage, she found a small crowd waiting for her. In the wings, her mother was there, arms open wide. Behind her stood Zoe and Luis, Chef Roland and Mr. Chen, Patricia and Vincent, Lily and the other children, representatives from every chapter of her story. "That was beautiful, honey," her mother said, embracing her. "You're coming back to play at the restaurant next week, right?" Mr. Chen asked with a wink. "We're still holding your Thursday night slot," May laughed. "I wouldn't miss it." "The recording session is all set for next month," Vincent added. "No pressure, but I think what you played tonight needs to be on the album." Later that evening, after the flowers had been gathered and the well-wishers had gone home, May found herself sitting alone at the piano on the now empty stage. The cleaning crew worked quietly in the background, giving her space for this private moment. She played a simple melody, the first piece she had ever learned as a child. The notes echoed in the vast empty space, a reminder of how far she had come and how much further she might go. A year ago she had been invisible, just another server balancing plates and hiding her talent. Now she was visible in ways she never expected, but she was determined not to forget the journey that brought her here. Tomorrow, she would return to her classes at the conservatory. She would meet with the architects designing the new music therapy wing at the hospital. She would work on her album and prepare for her small tour, but she would also stop by the Golden Leaf, not as a customer or performer, but to share a meal with the people who had been there before the spotlight found her. She would sit at the staff table in the back, laughing with Zoe about difficult customers and listening to Luis talk about his daughter's progress on the piano. Because the most important lesson of May's journey wasn't about fame or success or even musical talent. It was about authenticity, about bringing all parts of yourself to everything you do. Whether serving food or playing Chopin, whether teaching children or performing on grand stages, the key was to be fully present and wholly yourself. As she played the final notes of that simple childhood melody, May realized that this wasn't really an ending at all. Her viral moment had opened a door, but she was the one who had chosen to walk through it. What lay ahead wasn't just a career or even a dream fulfilled. It was a life where all the pieces of herself no longer had to be kept separate. The cleaning staff applauded softly as she finished, and May smiled. Every audience mattered, whether one person or 1,000. Every note was an opportunity to connect, to communicate something true. She closed the piano lid gently and gathered her things. Outside the stage door, a small group of young music students waited for autographs, their faces bright with admiration. How did you know you were good enough? One girl asked shyly as May signed her program. May thought about the question. I didn't, she answered honestly. I just knew that music was part of who I am, whether anyone was listening or not. The rest came from being brave enough to share it. As she walked out into the cool evening air, May looked up at the stars shining above the city lights. A year ago, she had been serving others, keeping her light hidden. Now she was shining, not just on stage but in classrooms and hospital rooms, in recording studios, and yes, sometimes still at the Golden Leaf. The journey from serving to shining hadn't been a straight line. It had been full of unexpected turns, difficult choices, and moments of doubt. But standing here now at what felt like both an ending and a beginning, May knew one thing for certain. Her music, like her life, was richer for having traveled this winding path. And the most beautiful compositions were still waiting to be written.